Welcome to Three Questions, where critical thinking is king, and my opinions and research are only here to support your learning and hopefully deeper understanding. Hey, I am your host, Meghann, and I'm so honored you clicked on Three Questions today because I have a very special guest, and her name is Suzanne Clements Martin, and I am going to assume I pronounced that wrong, so can you say it for everybody?
It's Suzanne Clements Martin.
So I didn't do too bad. Now,
No.
Yeah, it could have been better. I like to blame my New Jersey accent, but it's a tough pronunciation. Well, welcome to the podcast. I'm so grateful you're here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We have never met before, so it is a pleasure to meet you.
It is. And I see you, and I've, followed you for a long time on the Neuro Studio. And so it is really wonderful to meet you because I hear, just mega good things all the time about it. And so I really appreciate the work that you do, which is in some ways very similar to what I do, is working with the special populations. And so, I feel that there's a good chance that we have like minds. Yeah.
I know. And that's why, same to you and same about you. I was talking to one of my mentees, Hannah, and she's like, oh, she's wonderful. You'll really like her. Which isn't always a guarantee, but, it's a pleasure when you can also like a person. So, as always, when I do these interviews, I am going to put her full bio down in the notes because 2 minutes doesn't give it justice. How many years have you been in the movement industry?
Well, it depends on how you count it.
Count from the beginning. Where did it start?
Yeah, well, I've been in exercise and dance almost all my life. But, I think as an actual teacher, I started about age 20, and I hate to say it, I'm 70 now. So, so I have about 50 years of actually kind of teaching in movement. But, I've been in Pilates for about 40 years.
Nice. And that's kind of the same for me. I started teaching when I was 19 or 22 in college. Right. So there's not many of us so this is your first job?
No.
Meaning like movement?
You mean like a long time ago? So that was my first job in teaching ballet when I was about 20.
Yeah.
And so then from there, though, is that, I have 2 degrees in dance. But then after that, I became, a fitness trainer to be one of my 5 jobs. It supported me. And so I got ACE and ACSM as a trainer. And then actually right around that same time as I got invited to join the staff of the St. Francis Hospital with Elizabeth Larkham in the late 80s. And
so you have known Elizabeth Larkham. That gives me a good segue because, yes, Suzanne is one of the contributing authors of this Pilates Bible. I always have to look at the name because it's a long one. Pilates Applications for Health Conditions.
Right.
And she has written the chapter on scoliosis and spinal asymmetries, which is super important. And I mean, Pilates, we talk about the spine. So we could talk for days about movement, but I want to get right into question 1. So in your chapter on scoliosis and spinal asymmetries, you emphasize an individualized approach, which obviously I love, rather than like a standardized protocol, which there's a lot for scoliosis. But my question is a little bit more personal there. What assumptions do you think a lot of teachers or practitioners make about dealing with scoliosis and spines? So what assumptions do you think they're making that lead to them wanting a protocol rather than an individualized approach?
Okay, this is a can of worms.
I love worms.
You have no idea what you just said. Because
I'm setting you up. It's called an assist. So now you're going to dunk it.
Yeah, right. The thing is that's really really disturbing is that there's so many ages. I mean, it's the equal opportunity kind of condition. And so it fits so many different things. And so the problem is that I find a lot of Pilates instructors come and actually physical therapists too, with like a deer, a headlight in the eyes, and they're scared to death to do any side bending and any rotation. So it's similar to the osteoporosis problem when I've had people
the fear mongering.
It's like anybody over 50 should never forward flex again.
What are you gonna stand in a straitjacket? And
that's true.
Not to interrupt you.
Make sure we're not going to hurt anybody. Right?
Of course.
Yeah. But the thing is that it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. And so one of the things that has been popular in most definitely in the Pilates world is that there's a tendency to just say, this is what you do for a 2 curve, 3 curve, 4 curve. What does that mean? I mean, and what's the age group? And so that's why, like in my book, I try to separate it out between kind of youth and then older people. And I just came from Singapore teaching where I did a whole course in degenerative scoliosis. And that's a whole other can of worms where then I really go into the pathologies. And that's when you really have to be concerned. However, it's really disturbing, especially at my age, to find out there's actually research to show us that people who are non-symptomatic, mean no pain, kind of not having a good window of function, I would say, is that just when you go through the decades of just what the statistics show of what the problems are in the spine, especially when they get to about age 60, I mean, guaranteed degeneration of the discs. I mean, guaranteed. And then not only that spondylolisthesis, which is a slippage of the vertebra to the front. That could be to the front, it can be to the back, it could be to the side. And when it goes to the side, that's when people actually then start to not be able to walk and things like that. But so everybody's not in that category. And I do have some older clients because, I'm older, so I tend to attract older people. I think a lot of us, it seems like I teach these courses, everybody's saying, oh, Suzanne, but, I have a 90-year-old that she can't, she has osteoporosis, she has 2 hip replacements, she has buck teeth, and she is blind in 2 eyes. It's like, wait a minute. So, I mean, it's,
pain in her pinky toe, left foot.
It's just do footwork, whatever you do. It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, so, I mean, I think the approach that I try to take is actually look at somebody, and that is true. It is helpful to know what's a general C curve, which is just kind of a side bend that goes across many regions of the spine, the regions of the cervical, the thoracic, the lumbar, the sacral, and the coccyx. And then with the S curve, and frankly, everybody says, well, almost everybody's an S curve or they'd be leaning sideways. I mean, some of the worst curves I've seen are like maybe about 80 degrees. And one of the things that's really interesting is that in my other book, which is, spinal asymmetry and scoliosis.
And hold on, say the name of the book again, and we'll make sure we put it in the show notes. What's the name of the book?
Actually, spinal asymmetry and scoliosis.
Okay.
Functional solutions for spine, rib cage, and pelvis, or something like that.
Yeah. Sounds good enough. They'll find it.
I can never remember what the title really came out to be, but the thing is that I think that many of us in our movement education fields deal with people who have, I hate to call it garden variety spinal asymmetry. And instead of looking at somebody that has like a huge, forgive me for saying this, and I don't want to be offensive to anybody, an actual deformity, so there's a big difference. Like,
don't worry. I say much more offensive things. That's fun.
But, I think I have more of a functional scoliosis. And so then people are surprised, when I actually kind of do the scoliometer thing and then, it's going this way and that way and the other way. And and the thing is I think a lot of us have these kind of oddball types of things. I know I have some structural issues in there, but having been a mover all my life, then I move well. And that's what I was going to say is that in my book is that I convinced this, and actually I can give you the, I'm happy to give you the link for the videos that were in my book, because when the publisher,
I think everybody would enjoy that. Yeah.
Yeah, is that, some of it will make sense and some of it won't. Some of them are video, but it does have this one point that I call a montage of, I convinced a physical therapist to video some people with scoliosis doing sort of some functional things like a step down, like a squat, just super basic stuff. And so he had like 4 people because unfortunately it was a very far away. It could only get a couple of people to agree to go. But it's really interesting. So the person who wound up with the 80-degree curve, he actually writes to me and he says, listen, I don't understand. She was the one with the biggest amount of thoracic scoliosis and she was the best mover. Well, guess what? She's in Pilates. She's in yoga. She's a ballet dancer. And she was somebody who really took care of herself for decades.
That goes to the assumptions, that the amount of assumptions people make. And I just recently taught a little workshop, the neuro implications of scoliosis on reflex and stuff like that. And I said, guys, just because it's not an excessive scoliosis doesn't mean this can't apply to every client. So I love that you're teaching people, whether this is the worst curve you've ever seen or the smallest curve you've ever seen, we might have to address it. We might not. Let's see the individual person. I love that.
Well, I'm really glad you said that, because that's also one thing that sets me apart, is that I try to teach the courses from not just an orthopedic point of view, where you're just trying to push the spine into being straight, but that also there's a huge neurologic component.
Oh, so you include visual and vestibular and reflexive?
Yeah, so visual and vestibular, and then also fascial. But fascial gets into, because you use the tongue. For instance, I tend to fall down on the left. So when I'm doing, I mean, you have to pick and choose. You can't, make
Yeah,
the
you
client
got
run
some
out the
cranial
front
nerve
door.
stuff in there. I love it.
Yeah, is that I pull my tongue up to my right side. So then that's pulling the internal fascia to help me to stop some of the falling down on that area. But then that's also using some of my neurology of the hypoglossal nerve and some of the cranial nerves and stuff. Because then, because the head is not symmetrical too in scoliosis.
Nice. Yeah.
So, I mean, you definitely have all kinds of things going on. But yeah, I definitely work with the eyes and just, just the balancing of the body.
And do you find, so go back to the question is, it's the assumptions that teachers have that they want a quick fix or they want a protocol. So maybe a follow-up question to all that, because as you said, we are opening a can of worms, is how can you encourage teachers that there is no protocol? You've got to dig in, So what would you say to yourself at 20 years old or 25 years old, to say, hey, dig in?
Well, this is a daunting kind of thing. And so I actually teach more from an evidence-informed type of way. So in other words, we stand on the shoulders of many people who have actually investigated a lot of this. I mean, and so, not everyone has to do this, is that, I have spent a huge amount of time and money and resources, to go and find out what's the most recent things that we do know. And so, yes, so I think part of it is being willing. And I think when you go into the neurological field, for sure, you're definitely starting to step into the deep water.
Yeah, but everything we work with is evidence-based. I hope my question didn't seem like that we're ignoring the evidence. Everybody with scoliosis is different. We can't just find a concavity. We've got to look at the whole human. And I want teachers to know that your program approaches that and, tries to harness that. Is that okay I say that?
Yes. But I think that sometimes it's a really steep climb for some people, especially here we go. We got teachers that have gone through all this training to learn all the apparatus, to learn all the mat work, and to just get the exercises in their mind. And then suddenly we're asking them to go deeper into science.
Yeah, that's fair.
So it's hard, and so I think that I can say this for myself, and I have a feeling it might be for you too. I'm a little bit of an interpreter. So I do know how to look at the literature and to look at who is putting what out there and to try to separate what's just the marketing type of research and evidence and what are things that we're starting to come to as consensus. That doesn't mean that I definitely believe, only following an evidence-based protocol, because that's in PT, that's a major kind of issue. And
it's so funny when we're looking even again, I'm writing my dissertation right now so I'm constantly looking at research. Some of the things we're doing are not able to be measured. So right. The amount of cerebellum activation. My teacher was like, Meg, you can't actually do it. It's painful. And I was like, oh shit, well, I don't want to do that to stimulate the cerebellum. So I'm with you. It's 1 foot in evidence-based, but don't let it blind you.
Exactly. So, I mean, so the thing is that one of the things that I think is the absolute 100% strength of movement educators is that we develop our eyes for movement. And so that is something that really, and I hope that, again, I'm not hurting anybody in my particular field of physical therapy, is that I think that's one thing that really separates us out in a lot of ways, is that the kind of movement aspects that that a person who's trained in movement, instead of I hate to say just therapeutic moving, because I separate movement, exercise into like somatics, correctives is where kind of physical therapy lies, and then conditioning, and so I feel like it's helpful to try and move people through that and help them to sort and to go back and forth and be comfortable with that instead of just being in one world. Because, as we
I
know,
love that.
Yeah. Because
And does a physical therapist have to be a Pilates teacher to take your courses?
Oh, no.
Okay, so that's good. If you're a physical therapist listening to this, because I know we have a lot of physical therapy listeners, and I always say, because, I can be hard on physical therapists. I can be hard on Pilates teachers. The people listening to this, you guys are part of the solution. You're not the problem. These are the critical thinkers, the people doing that. So that's good to know that you don't have to be a Pilates teacher to learn these scoliosis methods as well.
Well, the thing is, too, is that I would have to say, having been in the field now, I've been in physical therapy for 30 years, is that it has enormously progressed. I mean, it really, really, really has.
For sure.
And then, things that were considered completely woo-woo and out to lunch are really starting to be looked at. And, I definitely have some colleagues who are just really on the cutting edge of movement education. And I just attended one online, in California the other day. And I mean, they did just a superior job.
Want to give them a shout out? Who is it?
So it would be Claire Frank and
all right, Claire Frank, good work.
Karam. Yeah, right. Neurodevelopmental, and then Annette Karam, and then also Tina Wang now, because I'm writing a book on hypermobility at this point. And so, yes, I was looking at their podcast, and I'm also from the dance world. And so I think for those of us that are lucky enough to have come from the dance field, that we do have that, extra, and the people who were teachers in the dance field then have a little bit more edge in terms of being able to be better movement educators, if I can make that opinion, just because, we have to spend hours and hours and hours watching people move and analyzing the details, because in order to be a good dancer, you have to absolutely 100%, if you want to be a good dancer or an elite dancer, you definitely have to focus on details. And so the details definitely make a difference in movement education.
Yeah, for sure. So moving on to question 2, something when I was reading your bio or just, kind of getting to know you better behind the scenes, I've seen you've taught internationally quite a few times. Many times you just got back from Singapore. Even you've crossed disciplines. So we talk about the physical therapy, and I 100% agree with you. I didn't become a physical therapist in college. So when did I graduate college? 2004. So it's like 20 years ago. Because I didn't like the physical therapy model. It felt too rigid, too corrective, and I wanted more. So I did exercise science, and somehow I'm here. But we're not going to get into that. But what I loved is you've also collaborated with other teachers. I also love that you gave some other teachers a shout out. The reason why I brought a bunch of the contributed authors on this podcast, this isn't the format for my podcast. I would love to see less scarcity mindset in the movement world and more collaboration. So I've been asking all the teachers. Some have given good answers, some have gave not so good answers, but it's their opinion. So how have you been able to cross disciplines? How could you encourage other teachers to do the same, of sharing and shining the light on others and understanding it doesn't diminish your light?
That is really true. I mean, another thing that I just happened to happen upon was another man. I think his name is Cheatham, and honestly, this is accessible to anybody who wants to look at these things. I mean, there's so much accessibility online now. Is that, and I just happened to see in the APTA magazine that there was a course on POTS, so postural orthostatic tachycardia, which just means the heart races when you stand up. So that's a phenomena in hypermobility, and that's and frankly, scoliosis and hypermobility, it's kind of can really cross over.
We see it a lot.
Yeah.
Every one of my EDS hypermobile POTS clients all have spinal asymmetries, every single one of them. Now,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to make generalizations based off I've seen a lot of clients, but I've just seen a lot of clients. I can't make any.
Well, when the body is that loose, if you have any propensity toward scoliosis, it's going to happen.
The brain is going to figure out how to get to a destination somehow.
Right.
Might not
Exactly.
be what you wanted.
Exactly. But anyway, I mean, I just thought, oh, I don't even need to know about POTS. And, I have like 5 tracks on my website of the kind of education I offer. And so cancer has been one of mine for a long time, although that's kind of taking a little bit of a back burner right now. But I'm very excited because I do have a mentee that I'm working with. But POTS is also part of what happens with cancer, with people going through cancer treatment for obvious reasons. I mean, you're taking a lot of medicine, and your physiology's
My
all
dad's
off.
dealing with it right now.
Yeah. So, but there was a physical therapist, and I mean, this guy, and frankly, he works a lot with adolescents that get concussions. And then he was saying that that's another aspect of what can happen with concussion. And so, this guy had some real concrete, good ideas about how to make a progression, because I had read in the oncology world that, yes, people can exercise with POTS, but you have to kind of know how to get somebody to where they can acclimate. And right now I'm working with a young woman, and her major symptom from EDS is actually fatigue. She has like outrageous fatigue. So I've had a number of people come through with that. It's a similar thing with oncology. And frankly, it doesn't seem apparent sometimes, but in scoliosis, it can be similar, because there's also research to show that that even though there's not a quote unquote actual lung problem, like an emphysema, something like that, it's just that people with scoliosis tend to tire out more because it takes more energy when you're out of like the cone of stability, and you're
Yeah, but also,
constantly
can't even argue the proprioceptive? Chemotherapy affects proprioception, neuropathy, POTS.
Right,
These people have
right.
poor proprioception. So it's like your brain loses track of you when you move from here to there. Sometimes we overlook, and you've talked about that. I feel like sometimes we even overlook the obvious, right? Where I've worked with many people with POTS, sometimes just some simple eye exercises to set them up first. So it's so cool how all these things, it's like, I don't know, the more I know, I realize we're all doing the same thing, just through our own voice and perspective, right?
Well, that's why it's really great to see, like, in these volumes, the amount of people who are in the Pilates field, and people who, were willing to come forward to show some of the work that they're doing.
In a very hard time, all these teachers, guys, who wrote these chapters, it was over COVID.
Yeah.
All of our businesses imploded. I used to travel once a month. I bet you traveled a ton too. It was a scary time for business owners. So it was kind of one of these things that we all did with no financial.
No.
None of us got paid, but that wasn't why we wanted to contribute to it and be part of a good product, which I think Elizabeth and Madeline did. But it was a tough time.
Yeah, it was a tough time. And actually, I have to give them a huge amount of credit for the enormous amount of work. I think a lot of people have no idea the amount of work that it takes to put the detail together and to make a really clean publication like that.
We talked about it in their episode about language. I love how they took the time to level out the language, do a glossary, because sometimes people were saying things that didn't really make sense based off the words they used. So it's a pretty great book.
Yeah, and so it was really hard to make it uniform. And the book, too, is what they asked me to concentrate on was gait. So that was the overriding theme throughout the whole book, from what I understand. So because they actually provided me with an assessment that was very specific.
Didn't we all have to do the same assessment based off gait?
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I wasn't sure if it was different for scoliosis. Sorry, I didn't mean to ask a question.
No. But that's one thing that I'm really happy about, because there's not a whole lot of information on the actually foot loading aspects. And so that's something I'm really interested in. And so that's also one of the tracks that I teach, is actually the foot management course. And so you can do a huge amount to influence the spine through the legs. And so, so for people who are like worried about, is it a C curve, an S curve? Is it a or they just have a flat spine. That's another condition. Everybody's all keen to kyphosis and things, but actually there's a flat spine, which is actually almost worse. And so you start with the legs. Whenever you're in doubt, start with those legs. And so we know footwork in
I
and
want to
out.
interrupt you to have you repeat that for everybody. So I'm going to summarize real quick. If you're scared of the spine, if it's overwhelming you, this expert in scoliosis just said, chill out. Start with the legs, move the feet. I love that. I feel like sometimes it could be a good starting point. And you have a course on how to start with the feet from your perspective.
Yeah. And also, like this woman came in the other day and Brandon, she's like 81, and somebody sent her to me and said, I think you can help her walking. I was like, okay. She's all bent over, but she was a former exercise teacher. And, she had all of this background, but I looked at her feet and she needed some serious foot.
They needed some
intervention.
love.
And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, okay, next time we're going to do a whole foot session, just to get her used to it. And so I think people think, well, that's just, my feet are just there and there's nothing I'm going to be able to do about it. And it's like, okay, we're not going to give you baby feet again. But the thing is that everybody can be improved.
So you can't magically fix feet, making them back to how we were at a baby? So you're not guaranteeing baby feet?
Right.
Too funny.
So
okay.
Yeah. No, but that was one of the main things that was told to me when I was young and I first started having back spasms because I had a fall. And so I went to this osteopath and she was older than God. And she was seeing people in her pool house. She was a retired obstetrician and she had, become an osteopath. And so here I'm crying and, I'm all in pain. I'm all distressed. I'm like, you're going to die. And she looks at me, she goes, she says, you're a dancer, huh? I said, yeah. She goes, your feet are kind of fat and flabby for a dancer. I was like, oh my God. That was my first indication that maybe I wasn't strong enough.
Interesting. Yeah. So did that turn you off to working on your feet, or did that make you want to work on your feet?
I was just mystified. But I didn't know, it took me a while to understand you could actually develop yourself. And so, fortunately, dance is one thing, and dance was hard, hard because you're just trying to, I hate to say, make shapes and make expression. And it wasn't like an academy ballet thing at that time, where I was in college. And so then I started when I actually started to study the kinesiology in my program and things, and I actually started to get results from the actual conditioning I was doing. I was like, OMG, I can actually get stronger.
Oh, shit can change.
Yeah, and I was fortunate enough, or unfortunate enough, to have, a loose body, had an extremely flexible spine where I could take my foot up over the back of, from the back over to my head, all that kind of thing.
Which looks nice on stage. Nobody's paying to see my leg on stage. I can barely lift it to there. But
yeah, well, now it's a whole different story. But the thing is at that time I didn't understand what to do with it. And so one of the things that was difficult is actually when I had all these spine problems, I became so frightened. I became fit, but no one showed me how to keep the flexibility of my spine very well, or to understand how to just work with the torso. So that's where Pilates filled it in. Because I'm very small. I'm 5'1" and 3/4 inches. I think I still kept my height.
There you go.
And then I don't do really well in gyms. I don't fit in the equipment. Yeah, and so that.
Also, you're a dancer. I'm not a dancer, but I come from a weight training background, sports, and I don't love all this linear movement at the gym. My body craves a little nuance, a little wiggle, a little rotation. So I feel like, and is that what Pilates got you into movement more?
Yeah, is that one of the things I could get like the tension through the range. And so to me, that was like a big light bulb. And then actually was in Pilates with Michelle Larson because I was going to people and they'd say, we don't understand what's wrong with you. You're flexible. You can do all this stuff. And then I realized, like in her course, that she was doing a scoliosis course. I was like, oh my God, I have like some kind of scoliosis. I go to people and say, "Can't you straighten out my rib cage?" And like, no. And I was like, all right.
Please, can you? And
Yeah, I
it's
was
so
like,
funny though, but what I keep hearing is, the kind of limiting beliefs that were set up for you. It's like, oh no, I'm stuck with this. This is it. And then when you were able to feel a difference in your body, and that's kind of why I love working with neurological conditions or people who've had brain injuries or stroke, because people are like, oh, what you do is impossible. I'm like, well, shut up. I'm working right now. And I love that you didn't set up limiting beliefs for yourself and was able to put yourself in positions where you were able to find that and offer it to other people. I think it's important.
well, it did really, I think it really scared the bejeebers out of me. And so,
Being in pain at a young age, you mean?
yes.
Yeah.
And also then that was one thing that kind of stopped me from performing at a certain point because because I was still in pain and I didn't understand kind of the hypermobility aspect of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, so those two things together, and now I'm actually a lot better. I understand nutritionally and,
But don't you
environmentally.
think a lot of dancers are in that same? A few of my mentees through the Neuro Studio are all one's still current and former dancers, but using the techniques like it's like, oh, I wish I would have known this when I was a dancer. I feel like a lot of dancers stop because it hurts.
Yeah.
Most athletes, I mean, my husband had to stop playing football at a high level because his tibia came off his femur, ACL, MCL, PCL, total meniscus. So it's like it hurt to do things. I just feel like, guys, if you're a human, not a movement professional listening to, because I know we have a lot of you guys, is don't let anybody set up limiting beliefs for you. If it's not working, find someone else to listen. Find someone like Suzanne who's understands scoliosis, understands hypermobility and stuff like that. Find someone who will think outside the box. And if you're a movement professional, find a teacher who speaks your language, right? We'll put it in the chat. I'm interviewing some other teachers. Find someone who will help you overcome all those things. I kind of love that messaging.
Well, we all need someone to spot us, to look at us, and I always had a really hard time trying to convince some of our Pilates friends to do exchanges with me. It's like they didn't want to do it. I was like, but I can go to ballet. I still go to ballet, and they will fry my butt, and tell me what I'm doing wrong.
Some people don't like to be corrected.
It's like, okay.
But do you think that's because some people don't like to be corrected? Is that the reason why they didn't want it?
I think they were intimidated. I mean, it's too bad. But one thing that I really do find really sad is when people say, the scoliosis runs in my family and there's just nothing I can do about it. Well, that's true. But the fact is that you can improve it. And also there's this physician, this French physician I really like. He's just retiring, Jean-Claude Demeroy. And what he says is actually, it's like living in California. You're trying to earthquake retrofit your body for like whatever's coming, and one is age, whether or not you like it, you're going to get older and things are going to change, just like it unfortunately did for Pilates. You look at him at one age, you look at him at another age, he looks really different, when he got older. And so, we're just doing the best that we can to stay out of disability. And so that's my whole thing is helping people to be able.
Yeah. One of my dad's mother, my Jewish grandmother, said, everyone has their own mishigas, which means everybody's got their own shit. And it's like, yes, you have scoliosis, but yes, we can help you sort that through. Some people have bad feet. Some people have MS. Some people are born with CP. Everybody's going to have their thing. So having someone like you or some of the other teachers, but for scoliosis, I think it's important, guys, that you go to someone who looks at scoliosis not just from an orthopedic perspective. And that's my opinion. I got to ask you one more question.
Yeah.
All right? This one's the most important. It might be. So I'm a very proud dog mom.
Oh.
Charlie Bear we recently lost him, but we still have Willie. So still a very proud dog mom. And I saw that you're a proud mom of 2 guinea pigs.
That's true.
Did I read this correctly?
Mm-hmm.
And what are their names?
Well, one's Onion, and the other one is Eggplant, but we call her Snake Snack.
Wait,
and we call
it's hysterical.
Yeah, we call her Snake Snack because actually I was in China about a couple of years ago when Blobby was dying. So Blobby was a favor of mine too, and so Blobby was passing away, and then
Blobby was also a guinea pig.
Blobby was a guinea pig, yeah. And so then my husband wrote to me and said, "Do you mind if I get another one because Onion is crying?" And I said, "No, go ahead and get another pig." And so then he said, "I rescued this one because she has red eyes and she'd probably be sold to be, a snake for a snack, a snack for a snake." So we call it snake snack.
That is so cute. And it's so interesting you said that, because my question for you is, how does observing animals influence your work or perspective on life? So recently when we had to put Charlie Bear down, I said, this is how I want to go. He was at the house, and Willie, our other dog, who was always loved Charlie Bear more than life. Charlie Bear tolerates Willie. Charlie Bear was a big golden retriever mix. Willie's a blue tick beagle. He's a beagle. So when Charlie was passing, Willie gave him space, and he was literally on the couch kind of crying. And it was just watching them and how they interacted. He came and said goodbye to him. I was like, we need more of this compassion for humans. It really affected me. So sorry I put in my story first. I really needed to share that. What is your opinion on animals? Has it shaped your life or your movement? What's with the guinea pigs?
Guinea pigs are really very humorous animals. But, the thing is, they don't live really long. So we've probably had about maybe 15 of them in the time that my husband and I have been together. Because we always replace one when one passes away. They die from a real variety of things.
Really?
And they were a lot used in cancer research. So many of them have had tumors, and also pure breeding is really bad for guinea pigs.
Wow.
Because there are a lot of, inbred and deformities that can happen. So we only had one purebred because his jaw was so misshapen that he basically kind of suffocated from that. I mean, it's like, so we're like,
but it's so interesting. And it's funny enough, beagles are used a lot in testing as well. And I wonder if it's also personality. What are guinea pigs' personalities like?
Well, I think one of the reasons why they use it in research is because they have hair and skin like we do.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, they have hair and skin like we do. So that's why they're used a lot in cosmetic kind of research or skin research. And that's why also they have to have vitamin C daily. And that's why Linus Pauling also used them for the vitamin C research. And also just they're easy to overcome. Like as an animal to do research on, that they're, they might bite you, but you can pretty much, and you don't want to get bit by a guinea pig. They really can be harsh.
Yeah.
But the thing is, for the most part, they're pretty docile and won't give up easily. Yeah.
It was just so funny. When I read your bio, I was just surprised because it was like, oh, I think, it was like, oh, 2 guinea pigs? I was like, I need to know more about the guinea pig situation.
My husband got a guinea pig when he was 8 years old, and he's had one ever since.
Okay, and I don't mean to be rude. How old is your husband?
He's younger than I am. He's actually 70. I'm a little bit older than him.
Oh, nice. So from 8 to 70, he's always had guinea pigs. I love this.
Yeah, and so I didn't understand it at first when I first met him because, and they did. They had dogs and cats and all that. But somebody had given him a guinea pig, and he just had a fondness for him, I think, just because they were such gentle.
So it was, if you wanted him, you had to love him and the guinea pigs.
That's what his sister said to him, is that whoever you find, is that she's going to have to like guinea pigs too. So it took me a little bit to warm up to it. But also we lived in such small studio apartments because that's what we could afford. You could hide a guinea pig.
Now, is this down, you said you're from New Orleans. Is that where and you're in California now?
No. So I grew up in New Orleans, and so then
I love how you say it one more time.
New Orleans.
I love it.
And so then when I wanted to go on a dance, either you go to the West Coast or the East Coast.
Oh, okay.
And then coming from such a kind of a podunk area that I didn't think I could make it in New York, just living. I mean, I could have lived there, but it was, I knew it was just like, was too hard for me.
Yeah.
So I went to the West Coast, and I decided to stay in collegiate things because I felt that would be sort of protective. I'm not that adventurous. But I met my husband dancing. So I went to an all-girls college, and we needed boys to dance. So, I was in modern dance at that time. And so he was invited to join our troupe, and he did, and he was my partner.
That is so great. So you haven't been able to shake him since.
Well, and that was important to me because my former boyfriend hated dance.
Wow.
I know. So I found that out kind of the hard way.
Yeah. But I'm married to a football coach. So I am a football fan. My dad was a huge football fan. He had 2 daughters. So that was kind of one thing that bonded Brian and I, because like I actually could talk football. Not in an annoying way, but and he was like, huh. But I couldn't imagine him being married to someone who hated football.
And my husband is a visual artist. And so I have also a double degree in both printmaking and dance.
What was the other degree? I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry.
It's printmaking. So I should have been a painter, but I wound up being in printmaking because I like the physicality of it.
Nice.
So silk screens, etchings, woodcuts, things like that.
Do you still do that kind of stuff?
No, I had to make a decision. When I moved to California, I did bring my portfolio with me. And where I came from in Louisiana, they were so happy to have anybody participate that everyone was welcome in the studio. But when I went to Mills, which actually is kind of a very high level fine arts kind of department, they were like, we don't have room for you.
Oh,
like,
no,
okay.
Seat taken, no room.
But my husband, when we moved here, he pulled my portfolio out. He says, it's time. And actually now throughout my whole house is my art.
That's amazing. So you can have other hobbies outside of movement. That's great to hear because, again, I started teaching Pilates and movement by mistake in college. It was my work study and got a master's. It just kind of fell in. And I'm like, it was kind of my hobby that became a job. So I was like, I need to find other hobbies that I can also do.
Yeah. And so for me, the performing arts were the dance world. I'm involved. I was a physical therapist for SNU and ballet in San Francisco for about over 25 years. And now I found another group here that's a small company that now I'm starting to work with them. So I really like that very much. And
Nice.
also I'm a gardener. I love growing things, and I have a butterfly garden, a pollinator garden out in front.
Do you watch TV? Do you sit still? Like, tell us something lazy about you. Come on, give us the gossip.
Mike.
I see a guilty pleasure you're about to tell us. Go for it.
I love Hallmark. I'm sorry.
So is my mom. Okay, my dad, he's very funny. He'll watch it with my mom. He's like, let me guess, they've fallen on some hard times, but it's Christmas and everything will work out.
Right, exactly. And the way I fell into it, I think it was flying back from China. And it was at Christmas time. And it was like on.
It always is.
So it was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I watched every Christmas movie.
It's so funny. I love that. I had said to, I think it was to Elizabeth, I'm like, let's elevate small talk to medium. Give me some gossip. And she, so Hallmark movies. So we now know your guilty pleasure, in addition to all your other accolades. So,
but also I love baking. Yeah, I love baking too. So I did a baking class in Paris when I was there recently. I did one in Italy, and then I even did one here in Atlanta.
Oh yeah, which is the best baking? Italy, France, or American?
Well, Paris was really interesting because the croissant, financiers, and baguettes. I mean,
good stuff. I like baking because it's a cup of this, a cup of that. I like it's more of a science. Cooking stresses me out. My older sister's like, just salt and pepper, it's a taste. And I'm like, I don't know what it's supposed to taste like. She's like, well, what do you like? I'm like, I don't know. I've never had it before. She like laughs at me. She's like, oh my God, you're the most. But we all have our things. So thank you so much for answering my 3 questions and a few A, B, and C's in there. I feel like we could talk for years. But if you haven't already gotten your book, again, it's a great little resource if you're a Pilates teacher or a movement professional. Again, it's kind of case studies. It's got little nuances, author's notes. And I like that, Elizabeth and Madeline, because I would put some things in there. They're like, we'll add that as an editor's note as well. So I think it's a really great start for the Pilates community, and grateful to Elizabeth, Madeline, for the rest of the teachers like yourself who participated. And it's an honor to be included in that group.
It is.
Thank you so much for being here today, and I hope this isn't the last time we speak.
Me too. Thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
All right, we'll see you soon, everyone.
Okay, bye-bye, everybody.